Alright guys, so I have two different Infernoid deck profiles for you. The first one is going to be Grass Infernoids, which is the 60 card version. The second one is going to be the 40 card version. Some people don't like running Grass because it's limited to one, it's kind of sacky. But in this deck, it's not that bad because you still have your 3 Reasoning, you still have your 3 Monster Gate, you got the 3 Left Arm, and there's been cases where I've played Reasoning. Reasoning. I've played Reasoning and I've expected them to ash it and they do, and then I just play Grass. Or I just play something that I know they're going to ash or I think they're going to ash, and then I'll just play Grass. Or if I have Grass and called by. So it kind of makes Grass less sacky in a way, and I know that seems weird. So all the Infernoids have this: cannot be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned from your hand, except for Decatron. We'll get into Decatron later. But all the Infernoids have this: cannot be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned by banishing one Infernoid monster from your hand or graveyard. The little ones typically say 1, 1, 1, and then the big ones will either say 2 or 3. Heidi's 2, Sagettis 2, Satemis is 2. I know I'm butchering the names. Atundel is 2, and then Deviati and Anuku are 3. All of them have that effect that you will have to banish to bring them out, and they cannot be normal summoned or set, except Decatron. Premius and all the other Infernoids, once again except for Decatron, even the big ones, have the effect of once per turn during your opponent's turn, quick effect, you contribute one monster, then target one card in your opponent's graveyard and banish it. So that effect is on all of the Infernoids except for Decatron. That effect's incredibly useful. You can actually banish itself, so like if you don't care about this one, or if you have a higher value monster on board, you can just have it banish itself. That effect is incredibly good because it's like a quick effect DD Crow during your opponent's turn. And now we're going to get into the main effect of all the Infernoid monsters. So Premius has the effect of once per turn, you can target one set card in the field, shuffle it into the deck. Neither player can activate that card in response to this card's activation. Very decent effect. Next we have Antra. We'll get into Decatron last. Antra's effect is you can target one face-up card your opponent controls, return to the hand. Also a very decent effect. Next we're getting into Harmodic. Once per turn, you can target one monster in the field, destroy it. This card cannot attack the turn this effect is activated. So this is kind of like the weakest of the little ones. I pretty much prefer Antra because it's also a level 2, which means it's easier to bring out more Infernoid monsters since you got this restriction on all of them except for Decatron that says you can only summon it while you have 8 or less levels or ranks of all the effect monsters you control. So next we're getting into Patrulia. This is our level 4. This is you can target one spell or trap card on the field and destroy it. It can't attack the turn this card effect is activated. I'm pretty much running this just so I have 2 Infernoid names. I think that Primalis is just better because a lot of back row at this point has effects when it's popped. Also, just shuffling it back in the deck has been more convenient. Just against most of the matchups that I've played. Fairy Tale Snow, you definitely want this card in here because you're running Grass, and because you're running Reasoning, and because you're running Monster Gate, and because you just have so much crap that you're going to be able to banish to constantly loop this card. If you don't know what this card does, if it's normal or special, you can target a face-up monster your opponent controls. Change it to face down defense position. If this card is in your graveyard, quick effect, you can banish 7 other cards from your hand, field, or graveyard, special summon this card. So like you have all these spells that you're not going to be able to use in your graveyard, just banish them, get a free monster. Next we have Piety. So this is one of the ones that requires 2. When it inflicts battle damage to your opponent by attacking an opponent's monster. Send one random card from your opponent's hand to the graveyard. That's decent-ish. Depends on the matchup. Like, if I'm playing Dark World, this says send, not discard, so it's not, like, the worst. But there are some cards that like some decks that like their cards being in the graveyard, so you might not want to play this against that. One of the things I like about the bigger Infernoids versus the smaller ones, like these say you can only special summon from your hand, Premius's hand, Antra's hand, Harmodica's hand, Paltria's hand. But once you start getting into the bigger Infernoids, these are hand or graveyard. So when you mill these off with Grass or Reasoning or Monster Gate, you are actually able to summon this from your graveyard, which is why these cards are so powerful in this deck. Next we have Sajet. I'm running 3 Sajets. You can tell I tried to generate the shiny ones because I have 78 commons. So when it declares an attack, you can banish one monster from your opponent's extra deck of their choice. It's decent, and makes your opponent choose something to throw away. You can kind of chip away at the extra deck with this. Really, I'm running this because it's easy to special summon itself, and it's a 6. Next, we're going to move on to Satimus. It's also a banish 2 to summon. At the end of the battle phase, if this card attacked, you can banish one card on the field. Doesn't target, just banishes. Great effect, really useful. In the ratio, we'll get into the ratios last, actually. Next we have 2 Lava Golem. This is just to get stuff off the field, and if you mill it, it doesn't really matter. This has been pretty useful. I know a lot of other decks aren't running this, and they're running, like, Nibiru. I'm actually running the Lava Golem because it's just been proven to be a little bit more consistent in getting the things off the board that I need. If you want to run Nibiru, you can run Nibiru instead. Personally, I'm running Lava Golem just because it can't be normal summoned or set, so we can't reasoning it out. I don't know if that's the case for Nibiru. Yeah, you could still special summon this. I wouldn't really want to special summon that off Reasoning or Monster Gate, personally. I know it's a beat stick, but I'd rather just have all the skips, so I personally prefer Lava Golem. Next we have Altendel. So this is another one where you banish 2. When it destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, it can make a second attack in a row. So it's basically a beat stick. That's why we're only running 1. Not bad. Next we have Deviati, which is the first where it's required to banish 3. When it's special summoned, you can destroy all spell and trap cards in the field except void cards. Very good effect. Once per turn, when another monster's effect is activated, quick effect, you contribute one monster, you contribute one monster, negate the activation, and if you do, banish it. It does not target. So it's just, they activate a monster effect. Even if it's a hand trap, you contribute another monster, or you can even tribute itself, and negate the activation and banish it. And next we have Anunku, which is, are they both 10? No, Deviat is 9, Anunku is 10. Okay, cool. So this is probably one of my favorite Infernoid monsters, just because I actually like the art, and when it came out and people were first running the deck, even though the deck was annoying, I just really liked the art on this card. And I was like, okay, cool, it's cool. So when it's special summoned, you can destroy all other monsters on the field. Once per turn, when a spell or trap or card effect is activated, you contribute one monster, negate the activation. If you do, banish that card. And so we're going to get into the ratios. I run 2 Premius, 2 Antra, 2 Harmodic, 1 Snow, 1 Piety, 3 Sajet, 2 Setimus, 2 Lava Golem, 1 Altendel, 3 Deviati, 2 Anunku, and then 2 Decatron. And this brings us to Decatron. When it is normal or special summoned, you can send 1 Infernoid monster from your deck to the graveyard except Decatron. And if you do, increase this card's level by the level of the sent monster. And if you do, this card's name becomes that monster's original name, and replace this effect with that monster's original effects. So this is great because you can just be like, oh, this is a Deviati now, I'm going to be able to negate monster effects, or oh, this is an Anunku now, I'm going to be able to negate spell and trap effects. Also, the fact that you can reasoning this out easily or monster gate this out easily. Just makes this card fantastic. I was running 1 at one point just so it was optimal with Reasoning and Monster Gate. I switched to 2 because there was just, I was at some points I was actually milling too much, which seems kind of crazy to say with Infernoids. But that brings us to our spell and trap lineup, which is basically our spell lineup. We're only running 1 trap, and it's Void Feast. And the reason we're running Void Feast is this can be just good to end the game. This could be good to chump block, so you don't have to worry about your opponent OTKing you. But we'll do Void Feast, and then we'll get into the spells. So Void Feast is send 1 Void spell or trap card from your hand or field to the graveyard. Special summon up to 3 Infernoid monsters from your deck whose total levels equal exactly 8, ignoring their conditions. So, this card's great. You can just bring out Decatron, get Decatron effect, have a free negate on the board. I believe Decatron... Oh, Decatron... Yeah, Decatron's not once per turn, so you'd use both Decatrons if you wanted, which is really funny, actually. Does it say different names? No, it doesn't. Yeah, so you could just bring out like 2 Decatrons and then like a 6. And just be like, yeah. But this card's decent for blocking. This card's decent for bringing out Decatron to negate. It's just decent all around. So we're going to get into our spells. 1 Regeki, 1 card destruction, 3 Reasoning. Reasoning is probably one of the best cards in this deck. Your opponent declares a level of a monster from 1 to 12. You excavate cards from the top of your deck until you excavate a monster that can be normal summoned or set. Because your Lava Golems and your Infernoids can't be normal summoned or set, you're going to skip over them. So you're either going to end up with Snow or Decatron. Unless they call 1 or 4, respectively. If they call 1 or 4 respectively, the card goes to the graveyard. But all the cards you excavate go to the graveyard. That's the important part. Next we have Left Arm. If you have 2 or more other cards in your hand, banish your entire hand. Add 1 spell or trap from your deck to your hand. You can't set spells or traps the turn you activate this card. No problem. I typically try to bait Ash and then activate this, or if I have the called by, I'll just activate this, and with the Ash, I'll just be like, yeah, no. 3 Monster Gate. It's tribute a monster. Excavate cards from the top of your deck until you excavate a monster that can be normal summoned or set. Special summon it, send the rest of the graveyard. Notice this is not once per turn, and this is not once per turn. You can use multiple Reasonings and multiple Monster Gates. Have fun with that. 3 Dark Fusion. Fusion summon 1 Fiend Fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand as material. Your opponent cannot target it with card effects this turn. This is really good for Evil, and it actually helps Evil dodge Imperm. So, just fun fact there. And dodge Effect Failure, actually. So we're running the triple Dark Fusion. Evil is really good, and we'll get into it in a moment. Pot of Desires, we're just running so much shit. If we don't draw them, we're absolutely desperate, then we'll just use the Pot of Desires and banish 10. Sometimes I'll banish grass off of it, and I'll just be like, cool, I'm not going to draw into grass now that I've pretty much just taken most of the explosiveness out of grass anyway. Which, let's go ahead and get into grass. I'm sure you've seen this at some point in your Yu-Gi-Oh career. If you have more cards in your deck than your opponent does, send cards from the top of your deck to the graveyard. Save the same number of cards in your deck as your opponent. If you open this, and this resolves, you pretty much win the game. You just, like, rip everything out of your deck to the graveyard, and you're just like, haha, I win. And the best part is if you draw Grass Looks Greener and Reasoning, and you still have a Decatron or a Snow in your deck, you're just like, oh, I'm going to activate Reasoning, or I'm going to activate the Monster Gate, and I'm just going to mill, like, literally everything and be able to play from my graveyard. If you get shifted, you just cry. Like, you get shifted, you lose. Lightning Storm. If you control no face-up cards, activate one of these effects. Destroy all attack position monsters your opponent controls. Destroy all spell and trap cards your opponent controls. You can only activate 1 Lightning Storm per turn. This is just good to have going second. It's just so nice to have, and it's a space filler. If you think there's something better than this, put that in there. Some people run transaction rollback. I didn't want to craft it personally. But transaction rollback, and I mean, there's one card that's just goat. It's like the goat laughs. Yeah, the black goat laughs. This is another card that is just, if it's in your graveyard and it's milled, it's useful. So you could run this over Lightning Storm. 3 Triple Tactics Talents, 3 Triple Tactics Thrust, 3 Void Reignition. This card is amazing. It is also not once per turn for the reveal. It's only once per turn for the second effect. So, reveal 1 Infernoid monster or 1 Void spell and trap in your hand. Discard your entire hand. Draw the same number of cards you discarded. Awesome. Helps you unclog your hand. If you control no monsters or all monsters you control are fiend monsters, except the turn this card is sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard, target up to 11 of your banished Infernoid monsters with different names and return them to your graveyard. You can only use this effect, Void Recognition, once per turn. Reignition once per turn. This card's insane. Next we have Imagination. Infernoid monsters who you control whose levels are 2 or higher become 1. This helps you bring Infernoid Flood out. This helps you do a lot of things. I misplayed this card a lot in the replays because I forgot that effect, and then eventually when I was playing it I was like, oh, this is an easier way for you to bring this out, because you can just constantly like banish stuff and you can make the Link 4 a lot easier. You can send this card to the graveyard, fusion summon 1 Infernoid fusion monster from your extra deck, using monsters from your hand or field as material. If your opponent controls a monster that was special summoned from the extra deck and you do not, you can also use 6 monsters in your deck as fusion material. This card's insane. 1 Void Breach. Infernoid monsters gain attack for 100 attack for each of your banished Infernoid monsters. Decent effect. If you control no monsters or all monsters you control are fiend monsters, you can activate one of these effects. You can add one of your banished Infernoid monsters to your hand, or you can special summon an Infernoid monster from your hand, ignoring its summoning conditions. You can only use this effect to Void Breach once per turn. It's decent. It's a good one-of. 2 Called By. 3 Chimera Fusion, because you can use this on your opponent's turn. During the main phase, fusion summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck, using monsters from your hand or field as material, including a beast or fiend. You will not be able to use it during your main phase if this is your graveyard and you have a Chimera or Mythical Beast effect, because we're just not running those. But it's just a decent fusion card, and because we mill off so much and we need to have 60 cards in our deck to run this, we're running 3 of it. Void Feast. We've already covered it, so we'll go to the extra deck. 2 Infernoid Evil. Some people are in 3. I think 3 is too many. It's 2 Infernoid monsters. If this card is fusion summoned, you can banish 1 Infernoid monster from your graveyard. Send Infernoid monsters with different names from your deck to the graveyard equal to the banished monster's level. So this is awesome. If you have like one of the big ones in the graveyard, like say I have like an 8 or 10 or whatever, I can just like go nuts and just send all the Infernoids that I need to the graveyard, and it's basically like resolving Grass or resolving Reasoning. It's just insane. If this card's sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 Void Spell or Trap for your deck to your hand. You can only use each effect of Infernoid Evil once per turn. This card is great. 1 Infernoid Terra. Sometimes this effect is good. Sometimes this effect can help your opponent. It's 1 Anuku, 1 Devati, and 1 or more Infernoid monsters. When this card is fusion summoned, you can apply these effects in sequence based on the number of material. So 3 or more. So if you send at least 4, each player sends 3 cards from their extra deck to the graveyard. Sometimes this is good. Sometimes this can hurt you if they're running things in the extra deck that have float effects. 5 or more, each player sends the top 3 cards of their deck to their graveyard. Again, it depends on the matchup. 8 or more, each player returns up to 3 of their banished cards to the graveyard. 10 or more, each player sends their entire hand to the graveyard. So depending on your matchup, that effect can be devastating. It just depends on what you're playing against. Next, we have Link Kribo. It's just decent because, like, let's say I'm dealing with the level restrictions because I don't have this out and I still want to make this. I can just link one of my Link 1s away, and then now I no longer have a level on the board. Nightmare Phoenix. Fire Charmer. Fire Charmer is decent right now because there's a lot of fire in the meta, and you can target one of your opponent's monsters, special summon it, and you can have another Link material, basically. Also, it helps you recycle. If it's destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect while in a monster zone. You can add a fire monster with 1500 less defense from your deck to your hand. You got a lot of options for that. Like even some of the big ones have 1500 less, not the biggest ones, but still. One mask, one proxy F magician. During your main phase, you can fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your field as fusion materials. If a fusion monster is fusion summoned to a zone this points to, you can special summon one monster with 1000 less attack from your hand. You can only use each effect to proxy F once per turn. This card's very decent if you don't have any of the fusion cards in hand. Flame Tongue, the Burning Blade, 2 fire monsters. Face-up spells and traps cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. Face-up spells and traps you control. You can target one of your banished fire monsters, add it to your hand, but you cannot activate cards or effects with its name until the rest of the turn. For the rest of the turn. You can only use this effect, Flame Tongue, the Burning Blade, once per turn. This card's very decent. One Little Knight, one Unicorn, one Promethean Priestess, one Access Code, one Salmon Great Raging Phoenix, and then one Infernoid Flood. Flood is awesome. It's 2+ monsters, including an Infernoid monster. It's Link 4. When your opponent would special summon a monster, you contribute one monster, negate the summon, and if you do, banish that monster. If a card is banished from your graveyard, except during the damage step, you can banish one card on the field. So, like, if you go to summon one of your Infernoids, you can just be like, okay, cool, I'll get a free banish for myself. If this linked summon card and its owner's control is destroyed by opponent's card effect, you can special summon one Infernoid monster from your deck, ignoring its summoning condition. You can only use each effect of Infernoid Flood once per turn. I almost called it Decatron. But yeah, that is the 60 card version of the deck. Now let's get into the 40 card version of the deck. Alright, let's get into the 40 card version of this deck. We're going to run 2 Premius, 1 Decatron, 2 Antra, 1 Harmodic, 1 Paltria, 1 Snow, 1 Piety, 2 Sajet, 1 Septimus. We're not running the... Oh, no, we are. Never mind. 2 Lava Golem, 1 Otendel, 2 Deviati, 1 Anuku. And then we have 1 Regeki, 1 Card Destruction, 3 Reasoning, 3 Monster Gate, 2 Dark Fusion, 1 Lightning Storm, 2 Talents, 2 Reignition, 3 Imagination, 1 Breach, 2 Called By, 1 Droplet. And that's the 40 card version. You can switch Droplet out for Void Feast if you want to. I actually think I'm probably going to do that for this version because in testing we haven't really used Droplet that much. And you'll see that in playthroughs. If you want to run the 1 Droplet, you can, but I honestly think Void Feast is probably the better card at this point. At least for this deck. In the extra deck, we got 2 Evil, 1 Tiara, 1 Link Kuriboh, 1 Nightmare Phoenix, 1 Hydia, 1 Mask. Instead of the Muckraker, I'm actually going to advise you run the Proxy because I really just didn't use it very often. And the Proxy seems a little bit more useful. 1 Little Knight, 1 Unicorn, 1 Promethean Princess, 1 Access Code Talker, 1 World Sea Dragon Atlantis, 1 Salmon Great Raging Phoenix, and 1 Flood. And that is it for the pure version of this deck, the 40 card version of this deck. And now I'm going to leave you guys with the replays. And I hope you all enjoy, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.